Greetings, friends, fellow citizens, fellow patriots, and even non-citizens, and all of you listening and watching this podcast from around the United States and around the world. Welcome to the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. I'm the host of this podcast. I'm also the president of the We the People Convention organization, and we welcome you to this podcast on December 13th, 2025, where you will get the news that's happened this week and that's important to your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, as well as some ideas as to what we can do, you and I, all of us together can do to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So thank you very much for joining us. This podcast and our website, our social media, our text messaging, our emails, our donations to other groups like True the Vote, PragerU, groups like that are all paid for by the generous donors to the We the People Convention organization. And if you have the wherewithal during this Christmas season to give to us, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org, and right on the front page, you'll see a link that says donate. And there's a little thing that I wrote that says, why should you donate? And the reason is because we have been very effective. Our organization over the last 16 years has been very effective and punching well above our weight, I would say. And there's also a new button on our front page that says, learn about the WTPC, which many of you who've been with us for a long time may not know some of the things that are in there, so you might want to check that out. I hope you're doing well. It's a kind of a snowy, cold December day here in Akron, Ohio. We had a 4-hour power outage last night, starting at about 10 p.m., and we have a generator, so Nan and I were fine, but I was concerned about our fellow citizens. It was in the teens last night, temperature-wise, and if you don't have power, your furnace doesn't run, and so this is a concern, in our country with all these data centers and things. I'm hearing a lot of talk about how we're not doing enough at our state and local levels to promote, generating electricity that we're going to need. I hope last night was an example of that, but it was a pretty big outage, so that got our attention. All right, so we're going to get started with our podcast, and I took this cartoon to start with because I really think it's the most important thing you and I have to be aware of. What are you thinking about, old buddy? Charlie Brown says to Snoopy. We are all being manipulated on a scale so incredibly large that it's difficult to fathom. That is just the truth. That is just the fact. You and I mean, almost most of what we see, whether it's hearing on the radio, seeing on social media, watching a podcast, and God forbid, watching Fox News or NBC News or CNBC or any of those things, it's all manipulation. It's all diversion. Oh, look at this. Don't pay attention to that. And I just want you to understand that our primary goal, the reason you watch this podcast, is to get the truth, to get the facts, to know what's going on, and then you need to be able to share that with your fellow citizens who are being gaslit. They're being fooled, okay? It's all about truth. The enemy of freedom, okay, is lies. And I many of you guys have been with me for a long time know I quote this book, How to Kill 10 Million People, by an American historian about the Holocaust. How did the Nazis kill the Jews? They lied to them. They told them they were going to protect them from the communists. Go read the book. And that's what you're seeing today. You are being just attacked every second of the day by a psyop, by psychological warfare to get you to believe things that aren't true. And so we always bring the receipts on our show. We always bring the receipts. So I'm going to give you just a quick one right now. The Epstein case. Okay? So the Democrats released 16 photos of Trump with girls and Epstein. And look at this photo. I want you to look at this photo if you're watching on video. And if you're not, it's a photo of Donald Trump surrounded by a bunch of good-looking women. The Democrats released the photograph, which is 10 years ago. It's an old photograph. They blacked out all the faces of the girls so you would think they're minors, so that you would think Trump's a pedophile. I'm sure many, this is from a post that I'll share with you on our podcast page at wethepeopleconvention.org, and you can then share it with others, by Nick Sorter. He says, I'm sure many of you have seen this photo in your feed countless times today, but most of you don't know the backstory, which is exactly what the Democrats intended. The original photo has been floating around for years. It's not new. However, Democrats put arbitrary censors over the faces of 20-plus-year-old women to make the public believe they were minors and Epstein victims. Total BS. These were models representing the well-known American suntan lotion brand Hawaiian Tropic at a Mar-a-Lago event. One of the women, who was 22 at the time the photo was taken, told the Telegraph today that Donald Trump was a gentleman and went out of his way to ensure their entire group enjoyed their time at Mar-a-Lago. She said, I was 22 years old and remember him being very nice. He was very gentlemanly. That's the word to describe him, she said. Not a single one of these women in this photo have accused Trump of any wrongdoing. It's absolutely shameful how Democrats have decided to discard actual victims, of Jeffrey Epstein's, pedophilia and sex trafficking in an attempt to falsely smear President Trump. Is that a good example for you? There you have it. It's intended for one purpose, to convince a percentage of the people that Trump is a pedophile, which is a total lie. And so Newsmax had a poll, and it said Trump eases GOP concerns on Epstein case. And President Donald Trump appears to be easing concerns among core Republican supporters over his handling of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, even as most Americans remain skeptical, according to a new Reuters Ipsos poll. The poll completed on Monday found Trump appears to be easing the concerns of his supporters. 53% of Republicans said they approve of the way he is handling the issue, up from 44% last month. That is still well below the 85% approval rating Trump enjoys among overall Republicans. So if only 53% of Republicans think Trump has handled the Epstein files correctly. Well, why is that? Because the Democrats have lied and said they're covering him up. Pam Bondi's covering him up. Dan Bongino's covering him up. Trump's covering up. When the courts would not release the documents. Now, they're going to now. These courts, Trump signed that executive order, and courts are now releasing grand jury testimony, which will clear Trump. There's nothing here but a psyop. That's the point. You need to share that. However, the poll found that most Americans believe Trump's administration is covering up information about the late sex offender, including his 2019 death and his ties to rich and powerful people, and do not believe Trump's claim that he was unaware of Epstein's alleged trafficking of teenage girls when the two were friends decades ago. Get this. Only 23% of Americans approve of the way Trump is handling the scandal, the poll found. Only 23%. Why? Because they've been lying about it, and you haven't told enough people it's a lie. That's the point. That's the fight we're in. It's a narrative war. You and I are in the front lines of the narrative war. We have to control the narrative. And it was one thing after another. This week, Kristi Noem's going to be fired before Christmas. It's all made up. It's bullcrap. It's total bullcrap. That's the fight we're in. Okay? So in that context, where we're in this world of lies, this was a big thing that happened this week, and we have supported this, and there's some of us in our group who are not supportive of this, but it's a big win. Australia became the first nation to ban social media for kids under 16. This has been something this organization, the We the People Convention, has been fighting for nationally and here in Ohio. We've been working to try to get Ohio to pass laws, because if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org and search on Jonathan Haidt, who's H-A-I-D-T, just go search for Haidt, you'll see videos of him with Jordan Peterson and other videos explaining how social media is destroying our children. They're committing suicide. They're in depression. They are unable to think clearly. They're being sex trafficked. And they're not going to be able to be functional workers because of what's being done. And we need to stop it. And Australia just moved to stop it. And there's a link on this article. If you go to our website, to that article, there's a link that says, click here to learn why why this must happen worldwide, and act now to support current efforts in Congress to enact this in the United States. There are currently a bunch of bills in Congress about trying to restrict children under 16 from social media. And the one is this bill that they want to have internet age verification before you can download TikTok. That's something we're for. And so I need you to call your congressman and support that. Anyway, Australia's social media ban for children 16 and under officially went into effect on midnight local time, December 10th. Many child advocates and parents have welcomed the ban, a global first, calling it a move to protect and boost kids' mental health, anxiety levels, and self-esteem, even if there is confusion about whether companies can actually keep children off their apps and sites. Of course, kids are smart. Everyone's saying, oh, you can ban this. They'll get around it. They'll use a VPN. It doesn't matter. You've got to put the laws. Just like kids you can't buy alcohol. What do? They get an older friend to buy them beer. That's been going on since you and I were teenagers, okay? Yeah, we get that. But the laws still stop the majority of them from being damaged. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese predicted the new law would become a source of national pride and said the ban was aimed at protecting and supporting Australian families. This law is about making it easier for you to have a conversation with your child about the risks and harms of engaging online. Albanese said in a statement Sunday, it's also about helping parents push back against peer pressure. You don't have to worry about that by stopping your child from using social media when someone else is there using it. Now, under the law, there's no peer pressure. Everybody can't use it, okay? That's the bottom line. The ban currently applies to 10 platforms run by social media companies, including Meta's Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Reddit, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitch, X, and YouTube, according to the e-safety commissioner. Social media companies have pushed back against the new law, with Snapchat characterizing the measure as misguided and even potentially risky for children, they said. Disconnecting teens from their friends and family doesn't make them safer. It may push them to less safe, less private messaging apps, Snapchat said November 22nd statement. We continue to advocate for more privacy-conscious solutions, such as mandating age verification at the device level, operating system, or app store level, which is what we're trying to do in the U.S. Congress, and what I want you to call and say, yes, we want age verification at the app store level. And here's the social media guys saying we're for that. We've got to do this. We need to support this. Our children are being destroyed by something that we can fix, and we just haven't. So that was good news, and I was happy to see it, and I hope you will take action. This is more concerning, though. This is on the internet side, and it says, who will control our AI future? Trump pushes for federal control as states push back. And you're right. We are pushing back. I told you about Steve Bannon and the letter by Mike Davis and those guys last week where they said, listen, we want you to, pay for the copyrighted material you're using in these large language models. You don't get a free ride. That's not the American way. Well, this is more of a free ride. This is a problem. President Donald Trump fired off a warning to states this week that his administration will be issuing an executive order to set a national standard for artificial intelligence development, but the measure faces stiff resistance from both Republican and Democrat states alike. Trump is saying, and I understand why, there must be only one rule book if you're going to continue to lead in AI. We are beating all countries at this point in the race, but that won't last long if we're going to have 50 states, many of them bad actors, meaning California, New York, and others, bad actors, involved in rules that that limit the ability for AI to move quickly. All right? Now, we get that, but the problem is they abuse us, and they don't deserve this. And so the proposed executive order, details of which are not yet known, I'll talk about that next. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis who just this week proposed an AI Bill of Rights in Florida, said that an executive order could not undo state law on AI under the Constitution. An executive order doesn't and can't preempt state legislative action Congress could theoretically preempt states through legislation, he said on X. The problem is that Congress hasn't proposed any coherent regulatory scheme, but instead just wants to block states from doing anything for 10 years, which would be an AI amnesty. We're not for AI amnesty. I doubt Congress has the votes to pass this because it's so unpopular with the public. All right? So this is what they want. The AI guys are all around Trump, and they're saying, oh, if you don't give us energy that we don't have to pay for, but your citizens will pay for our data centers, and you don't let us just rob everyone's copyrights, your songs, your books, your speeches, your papers, whatever, and put those in our AI models. And if you don't, let us have basically no regulation from the federal government, like remember Section 230, which has got us in this social media fix where we couldn't sue Meta and X and Twitter and those guys because they're protected by who? By Congress. Congress. Why? Because they got donations. And they're getting big donations now. And Trump is falling for it. And we've got to push back and fight back. And he did sign the executive order. Trump signs order to prevent, AI. Let me see. Trump signs order to prevent states from regulating AI. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on December 11th that seeks to establish a federal standard on regulating artificial intelligence companies and prevent states from putting limits on the booming industry. Titled Ensuring National Policy Framework for Artificial Intelligence, the president's order aims to create national standards on AI regulations. Trump said it's important to protect the growing industry. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested that China would outpace the United States in innovation if the federal government allowed states to enact their own rules. The order says the national standard of AI regulation should protect children, prevent censorship and copyright infringement, and safeguard communities. A carefully crafted national framework can ensure that the United States wins the AI race, and we must do that, Trump's order states. The order directs Attorney General Pam Bondi to create a task force within 30 days to target and challenge any state AI laws that defy the order's public goal of sustaining U.S. global dominance in the AI industry. That's not legal. You can't do that. And until Congress passes something, which they haven't passed a damn thing, what basis does Pam Bondi have to do anything? Here's the problem, and here's why you need to message the president. He says we need to have rules. A carefully crafted national framework should protect children, prevent censorship and copyright infringement, and safeguard communities. They're not doing any of that. Nothing. There's nothing in Congress other than this, the thing that they're trying to get. You have to show age verification at the App Store level, okay? Other than that, they're not protecting children. They're not protecting us, citizens, from our copyright theft. They're not protecting communities from the AI, taking our land and not paying us for it. This is out of whack. This is, again, the tech bros. Why did they switch from the Democrats to the Republicans? Peter Thiel, baby. Remember the name Peter Thiel. If you don't know Peter Thiel, go look it up. Go watch his videos. He is the architect. He brought Musk and he brought Bezos and Meta, Zuckerberg, all of those guys in. Remember when Trump was sworn in? Who was standing behind him? All the tech bros. They own J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is a problem because he's going to be the tech president. They own him. He worked for Peter Thiel. This is a rigged deal. Again, and we, the American people, are going to come up short. It's like Steve Bannon said in his letter last week. You guys are valued at $20 trillion, and you're claiming poor mouth that you can't pay copyright holders for using their songs and their books to create AI stuff? Horse hockey. That's ridiculous. And then they're saying, oh, China will beat us if we don't have one rule and stuff because they'd have to navigate laws in 50 states. And this one woman said, the insurance industry does that every day. The banking industry does that every day. You guys are so smart in the tech world. Yeah, use an AI to do that, to navigate the laws in 50 states. And if you have a law in that state, like California does, where Musk had to move his rockets to Texas, do it. It's a bullcrap excuse. And President Trump is on the wrong side of this. He needs to be on the side of the American people. He needs to protect our interests. Where the hell is anyone protecting our interests with AI? What is President Trump doing to protect us from losing our jobs to AI? Have you heard him saying about that? Maybe you ought to write about that. Go to whitehouse.gov/contacts, whitehouse.gov/contacts, and let him know. It's up to us. We're in this together. We don't hate President Trump. We love President Trump. That doesn't mean he's never wrong, and that doesn't mean we can't criticize him. We can speak our minds. We're defending free speech. That's what this is all about. Protecting and defending our First Amendment rights. And I know some of you are saying, oh, these laws about, making me show my age to get TikTok is an infringement on my First Amendment rights. And I say, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's why we have laws about alcohol, driver's license, guns for kids. Internet, social media has to be cut off. And oh yeah, for that Snapchat guy who said, oh, if you cut them off from their favorite social media thing, they might become more detached and go to worse places to talk to friends. You know what they might do? You know what you're seeing is happening in the schools where they've shut off the phones, where you have to put your phone in a bag when you come to school in the day? You know what's going on? Kids are actually playing with kids. Oh my. They're actually going outside. They're actually not in their basement on a frickin' computer. Don't buy the lies. It's all a psyop. Okay. So then the other big story this week was this disaster in Minnesota about the Somali fraud stuff. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness gracious. Walz, Omar, and billion-dollar Minnesota fraud scandal just exploded. Minnesota is now facing one of the largest documented government services fraud scandals in United States history. Under Governor Tim Walz's evidently unwatchful eye, federal prosecutors have estimated that approximately $1 billion in taxpayer funds have been siphoned from multiple state and federal-funded social service programs over the last 5 years in Minnesota alone. $1 billion, 5 years. As of this writing, 87 individuals have been charged in connection with the scheme, with 61 convictions already secured, and more charges continuing to be filed against these fraudsters. The bulk of the fraud scheme centers around 2 government programs. The first target was Minneapolis-based not-for-profit Feeding Our Future, don't you know, which distributed federal child nutrition funds during the COVID-19 pandemic. Beginning in April 2020, right when the pandemic was going on, the organization's founder and executive director allegedly oversaw an elaborate fraud operation that involved over 250 fake meal sites throughout Minnesota, siphoning over $250 million in taxpayer funds fraudulently. The second scheme involved Minnesota's early intensive developmental and behavioral intervention program, and this is just diabolical, which provides treatment to people with autism. Defendants allegedly fraudulently billed Medicare for autism therapy services that were never provided. They recruited children from Minnesota's Somali community who did not have autism. Okay? Total fraud. Their parents were then paid between $300 and $1,500 per month as kickbacks to keep their children enrolled. To put this into perspective, one company billed Medicaid over $850,000 in 1 year for one child who was paid out $438,000. Okay? But none of this should have ever happened. It could have been stopped earlier. There were early warning signs as far back as July 2019 when Minnesota state officials discovered that there was potential fraud occurring within Feeding the Future. They brought it to Walz's attention. They brought it to the Attorney General's attention. And they did nothing. But everything came to light. Walz blamed the judge in Feeding America's Future case for forcing the state to continue making the payments. So they brought it up. They said, we're not going to do this. The money's coming in. We don't want to stop it. This is Walz. Omar, a House member, the Attorney General. We're covering this up. They're getting donations to their campaigns from Somalis. Okay? When Walz blamed the judge in their Feeding Our Future case for forcing the state to continue making payments, He said the judge made them do that, yet this everything was such a blatant misrepresentation of the facts that the judge himself came out and said the Department of Education voluntarily resumed payments and informed the court that that FOF resolved the serious deficiencies that prompted the suspect payments temporarily. So they basically said, the Education Department told the judge, those problems that this feeding our future they're having, they've resolved them, so we're going to resume payments. This is criminal. Any meaningful due diligence seemingly would have tipped off investigators to the blatant fraud that was occurring. Reports note that nearly $700 million in EIDBI claims had been paid out, with notable spikes around the same period that dozens of news clinics popped up within the state. It's just unbelievable. But you know what? It's everywhere. This is why you and I say you could cut the federal budget by 40% and we would be better off, because it's not going to feed people who need it or provide housing for people who need it. You'll see that throughout the podcast. But let me just play this little video, because Breitbart had a story that a whistleblower says, it's not just Minnesota. Look what's going on in Ohio. Yeah, here's a short video clip. It'll spell it out for you perfectly.
Come see Columbus, Ohio, fraud investigators. If you go to the government-assisted housing areas, you will find that most of the housing is Somalians. I would say about 80% of the government-assisted housing in Columbus is occupied by Somalians. And the parking lot is occupied with a whole bunch of brand new cars. And the women walking around have designer purses with EBT cards, and they have Apple iPhones stuck up in their hijabs. Yeah. And then go to the businesses that are owned by the men. Because see, what happens is when you have a restaurant or when you have a little corner store and you have a couple of wives and you only have to claim one, then that means the other wives get EBT cards. And you can use those EBT cards to buy food for your store or your restaurant. Yeah. Or what you can do is you can get a home health aid company. And then you only hire Somalians to work the home health aid. And what you do is you just make sure their paperwork looks right. It don't have to be right, but you just make sure it looks right. And then you send them off for those home health aid jobs. Y'all don't want to talk about fraud.
Yeah, we want to talk about fraud. You and I, the taxpayers, want to talk about fraud. We want our representatives to cut this off now. And so the other big debate this week is, the Obamacare subsidies are ending at the end of December, and premiums are going to go up for the people who got Obamacare. Oh yeah, except the Democrats were the ones who set that date for them to expire. And now they want the dumbass Republicans to just extend it for 3 years. Geez, 3 years from now, that would be after Trump is done. Let's do that. Let's extend it for 3 years, Republicans. And there's some Republicans wanting to do that. Because we don't want anybody's premiums to go up. That would be terrible. Some of these people getting these subsidies are making $600,000 a year. Their premiums could go up $500 a year or $1,000 a year. But you know what? They never should have got them in the first place. And then here's the other thing. You listen to this crap, and the Republicans and the Democrats will never tell you. This is only 21 million Americans that are involved in this. This isn't everywhere. They make you think that your premiums are going up. And they are going up, but much slower, because 180 million Americans have insurance through their companies and other ways. This is a minority of people that we're talking about, and they want you and I and our Republican fools to throw the money away. We showed you the charts weeks ago about the insurance companies where they get the money and by signing someone up who never has a claim. They get the money up front in case they file a claim, but they never do. It's thievery. And so we got to stop it. And so let's talk about Obamacare. because it's just unbelievable. This test that they did, and this story will be linked on our podcast page, and you just got to read it. I'll give you the highlights or the lowlights, okay? Tests show extent of Obamacare fraud. It sure looks like Obamacare is rife with fraud. You think? The new Washington Post editorial board continues to be a surprise. I suspect they have posted more right-leaning material in the past 3 months than was published in the paper during Biden's 4-year term. In any case, today the Post makes the case that Obamacare subsidies, the coming expiration of which the stated reason Democrats shut down the government, should not be extended. Why? Because there's lots of evidence suggesting the program is rife with fraud. You want proof? This is their system for qualifying people to get these subsidies. On party line votes in 2021 and 22, Democrats invoked the pandemic emergency to temporarily expand eligibility for Obamacare insurance subsidies. Preserving these credits, which are due to expire at the end of the year, would cost $350 billion over the next decade. Democrat leaders are trying to keep the subsidies intact without reforms to address abuse that has grown rampant in the system. The Washington Post writes, the report issued last week by the nonpartisan Government Accounting Office underscores why they should be a non-starter. We should not extend these at all. Zero. No money. None. The report they're referring to was published by the General Accounting Office. It's titled Preliminary Results from Ongoing Review of Fraud Risks in Obamacare. Okay? What the GOA staff did was create 20 fake identities and then apply for coverage as if they were real people. So they're testing the system, right? To test enrollment controls, we developed and submitted 4 fictitious applications to obtain insurance coverage with APTC through the federal marketplace. We applied for coverage for these 4 applicants in October of 2024. We submitted the applicants outside of the open enrollment period using a special enrollment period for low-income applicants. 20 in 2 cases, we applied for coverage directly through healthcare.gov. What happened? When they submitted these, they were phony. They were fake. To test further enrollment controls, we developed 20 fictitious applications to obtain insurance coverage. Although our work is ongoing, the federal marketplace initially approved coverage for 19 of the 20 fake people. It should have been 0. They did it for 19. We did not pursue one application when the broker we were working with stopped responding to us. Additionally, the marketplace subsequently canceled coverage for one of these enrollees, but the rest of the 18 all got Obamacare. There's no one at the gate. There's no one at the gate, whether you're Somali or you're whoever. Come on in. The taxpayers are given free money. If that doesn't make you want to call your congressman and say, no, I don't know what I can tell you. We're being ripped off. And it shouldn't happen. And then they want to tell us, oh, we have no money. You know why we have no money? Because everybody is stealing us blind. And if you don't, and I don't you feel like a fool? They're taking our money. We're playing by the rules. We're paying our taxes. We're trying to do the right thing. And they're abusing us. There's no other way to put it. So the Senate did not pass a new health care bill because the Dems said, we want you to just change nothing. Just keep sending out the money. The stupid Republicans had a bill that was like, well, we'll do that for a year, and then maybe we'll try to reform. Shut up, okay? Now, the health care bill introduced in the House is trying to do more, but the answer should just be no. House Republicans introduced a health care bill on December 12th aimed at making insurance more affordable and transparent for Americans, following the Senate's failure to advance 2 bills that day. The Lower Health Care Premium Act, introduced by Representative Meeks from Iowa, would allow Americans to review the true cost of drugs, give them lower premiums, and help employers have flexibility with health insurance plans. One of the key proposals of the bill would require pharmacy benefits managers to be transparent about how much prescription drugs cost, where rebates are allocated, and why some drugs are covered and others aren't. Why is this on the prescription drug people? Why isn't this on the prescription drug companies? Second large proposal, the bill would provide funding for that lowers premiums and is intended to stabilize the market. It would also give relief to low-income enrollees who need it. Well, what does that mean that they're going to lower premiums? How are you going to do that? I don't get it. This is the dysfunction. And so let me just bring it home with one thing. What the hell is the federal government doing in healthcare at all? Where in the Constitution does it say that the federal government's job is to provide health care for American citizens? It doesn't, does it? It's called a states' right. Just like Trump is trying to push education back to the states. Why? Because the federal government has no role. The Senate, the House, the president should say, guess what? We're going to take whatever money we have, we're going to reduce it, and we're going to send it to the states in block grants, and they can figure out how to provide health care for their citizens, because what we're doing is unconstitutional. It was done for one freaking reason. Just like education was brought into the federal government, just like Obamacare. What is it? Socialized medicine. Government health care sucks. It's more expensive. It provides worse care, as is documented totally by we're dying sooner, we're sicker more, we're more obese. It's a total failure, and it's a liberty issue. Because if the government controls your health care and you don't, they control you. How's that? What a concept. Let's just cut it all off, send some money to the states and say, hey folks, that's not the role of federal government. I read my Constitution. Wow, it's maddening. Maddening. Okay, been kind of on a rant of negative things. We're going to go through some positive things, okay? Let's go to some positive things to finish the first half of this podcast. We have rescued 62,000 children so far. Tom Homan had a release this week. God bless that man. God bless President Trump. White House border czar Tom Homan on December 7th said more than 60,000 children who were legally smuggled in the United States have been located by the Trump administration, and that some were rescued from dire situations, including sex trafficking and forced labor. In an interview on Fox News, Homan said the previous administration had lost track of 300,000 children who were smuggled into the United States, saying some of those children were released to unvetted sponsors. They didn't lose track. The Biden administration was the biggest child trafficking organization in the history of the world. They worked with the cartels. They worked with pedophiles, the lefty pedophiles in the Biden administration did it on purpose. They trafficked over 300,000 kids, and now Trump's trying to fix it. And he deserves credit for it, and you need to talk to people about it, because nobody even understands. They don't know this. Since President Donald Trump took office in January, 62,000 children were taken into the United States and had been found as of December 5th. Homan said many of them are sex trafficked and in forced labors. Others have been abused. I can't discuss the mistreatment. It's too terrible. So here's a chart just so you understand what a big deal this is, because the left never reports on it. Oh, no. Oh, ABC, The View? Yeah. When's the last time The View talked about trafficking children, right? So here's what modern-day slavery looks like, folks. $91 billion per year made from sex trafficking. $51 billion per year from use of forced labor. 21 million people worldwide. 20% of them are children. 3 out of every 1,000 are victims of forced labor. This is an industry that the Biden administration and our tax dollars subsidized. Child labor, child sex work. Yeah. When are we going to hold accountable the people in the Biden administration who knew the laws and didn't vet the parents, that these children who came over the border with a note pinned to their shirt and then were handed to some pervert by the Biden administration who had no family ties? When are we going to hold them accountable? I mean it. How can you let those people get away with this? My goodness, what an immoral society we've become. It's just unbelievable. And what do the Dems do? What? Okay, so Tom Homan's trying to save these children. We're trying to, stop the Somalis from stealing us blind. Trump freezes immigration from those 19, third world countries now. We're trying to fight everything we go. What do the Dems do? Oh, yeah. Illinois Governor Pritzker enacts a law to expand protections for illegal immigrants in Illinois. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. While we're trying to deport these people, and there's overwhelming support, don't be gaslit. They will tell you, they're all the sob stories, about, this person's got picked up outside of a Home Depot, or they went into a classroom and took this person. They're all lies, by the way. They've all been debunked. The only people that the ICE is deporting and detaining are people who are criminals, murderers, rapists, drug dealers, etc., 650,000 of them, and you broke into the country. You're not a citizen. The Dems keep trying. They're arresting citizens. Yeah, what's Pritzker saying? Here's what he's saying. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signed House Bill 1312, a bill aimed at shielding illegal immigrants from deportation and limiting civil immigration enforcement for certain state institutions. With my signature today, we are protecting people and institutions that belong here in Illinois. You don't get to make that decision, Governor Pritzker. That's federal law. Immigration is 100% federal law. The law creates new protections for illegal immigrants, restricts civil arrests near courthouses, and imposes privacy rules on institutions such as hospitals and universities. That's insane. He needs to be arrested. That is sedition. That is insurrection. There is no such thing as a sanctuary city in the law. There is no such thing. And yet we pretend they just say it, the words, and we go, whoa, geez, I guess it's a sanctuary city. No. And that we need to start arresting these criminal politicians. Until we do, nothing's going to change. Ellison in Minnesota, Walz in Minnesota, Omar, she's got to be deported. She's an illegal immigrant. She shouldn't be in the U.S. House. She should be in frickin' Somalia. And don't let her take the $30 million she's got now. Funny how that works with insider trading. To Somalia with her. Let her go to Somalia and eat dirt like she did before she came here and then abused us. When are we going to get with the program? I guess I'm still being negative. I'm sorry. There's more good coming. I promise there's more happy news. I just got to say what it is. And then this comes out. Oh, my goodness gracious. This comes out. Biden allowed 18,000 known or suspected terrorists into the U.S., top Trump official reveals. So there's a hearing this week, and Kristi Noem and Joe Kent and those guys are testifying. The Biden administration allowed roughly 18,000 known or suspected terrorists in the country. Director of the United States National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, testified in the House Homeland Security Committee hearing on Thursday. Kent revealed that 2,000 of the 18,000 known or suspected terrorists were led into the country as part of Biden's administration program to bring in Afghans. So a bunch of them were Afghans, but the other 16,000 weren't. He also said that the 18,000 number doesn't include an unknown number of terrorists the Biden administration allowed in after they crossed the border. Okay? So I don't know what that means. We're working right now to hand in hand with DHS and the FBI to run down these 2,000 Afghaners and the other 16,000 individuals. Here's my problem. He testifies. Noem testifies. Your representatives are, holding the hearing, holding their feet, to the fire. What about this, Kristi Noem? What about that? Not one person said, hey, Kristi Noem, hey, Joe Kent, what about those 32,000 military-aged Chinese males who crossed the border mostly through California during the Biden administration that we reported on, that we told, that had pictures of? Where are they? Where are they? What are you doing about them? Oh, no, not a word. Since Trump came to office, you haven't heard a word. about the Chinese military men in our country. Yeah. Maybe you should ask some questions about that. Wouldn't that be a good idea? Yeah, probably would be a good idea. Okay. States are acting. We're trying to do things. Noam was great. She defended herself. Okay. We are doing stuff. We're doing a lot of stuff. I told you, we're deporting people all over the place. 2.5 million are out of the country. 650,000 have been detained. Florida designates CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood as foreign terrorist organizations. This is something that we have to do. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced Monday that his state has formally designated the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council for American Islamic Relations as foreign terrorist organizations, following a similar move by Texas. Texas became the first state to label the groups as foreign terrorist organizations last month, which forbids both organizations and their affiliates from purchasing or acquiring land in Texas and allows increased enforcement against the groups. DeSantis said the new designation is in effect immediately. Florida's designated them terrorist organizations, and this measure is intended to prevent unlawful activities by these organizations, including denying privileges or resources to anyone providing material support to terrorist groups here and abroad. You got to do that. You got to do that. And so I want to make sure you are aware that while there's all this news about, ICE is being stopped and all that stuff, they're not. I saw an article this morning. Now get this, because remember, LA was the first place that ICE went, and they were throwing cement blocks off the bridges, and we arrested a bunch of people and prosecuted them. But Gavin Newsom and the mayor of LA was saying, this is terrorism. ICE shouldn't be here. You haven't heard about LA at all, have you? Haven't heard anything about LA. You're hearing about Chicago, then you're hearing about Nashville, Memphis. You're hearing about Charlottesville, now New Orleans. Story today, 10,000 illegal alien criminals have been arrested by ICE in LA alone. 10,000. What does that do to crime in Los Angeles? When we know that something like 80% of the crimes in any major city, 80% of the crimes are committed by like 10% of the criminals. If you get rid of them, things get vastly better. Oh, that's why the Democrats are trying to stop it, right? That's why they're trying to stop it. Remember, they're trying to destroy America. They want the illegals here. Why? Why do you think housing prices are so high? Why do you think apartment rents are so high? You bring in 20 million illegal immigrants, you got to put them somewhere. That forces out low-income Americans. It's all a strategy to destroy America, and Trump is saving America. That's the message. And the people who want to criticize him, they don't have a leg to stand on. They have nothing to say but hate Trump. You got to defend Trump, even when we think he's wrong with the AI stuff. We can disagree, but we agree on one thing. Donald Trump's probably the greatest president since George Washington. And we're going to support him. That's why 83% of Republicans support him. And what the hell's wrong with the other 17%? They're not really Republicans. Okay, a couple quick hitters now. This was good. The Federal Reserve met. They cut interest rates by 1/4%. That was expected, and the market reacted positively. And he did something else. The Treasury Director Powell then moved to start not only cutting the rate, but he resumed buying Treasury bills on Fridays to help keep the economy from getting too hot again or any kind of inflation going up. So the 1/4% rate cut was predicted. It did well. And I think that's going to happen, even though they said 2026. Powell's done, I think, in May. But, that there won't be many cuts. There will be. We're doing okay there. So that was a good thing. The markets went up, and lower interest is better for all of us. This is the biggest thing that helps you. Gas prices below $3 in 37 states, thanks to new American energy boom. This is one of the biggest things that hurts individuals. Gas prices, okay? Fuel costs are the heart of our nation's economy. When prices for gasoline and diesel fuel are high, it's a hidden tax on everything in our economy. increased shipping costs means increased prices, and increased prices that outpace wages means decreased buying power. It makes it harder to go see the family and friends, as millions of Americans did during Thanksgiving, and it costs more for everything. And not to mention, fuel is what makes plastics, is what makes fertilizers for the farmers. It's the key thing. There's good news. Good news. Gas prices just seem to keep dropping in the age of Trump. Average petrol prices at the pump are under $3 a gallon in 37 states. And in Colorado, that price hit $1.69 a gallon, and multiple states had prices under $1.99. Under Biden, gas prices were the highest they've ever been, even after he drained our strategic petroleum reserves to artificially decrease prices right before the election. So far, President Trump's second term, Americans are on track to spend the lowest amount of their disposable income on gas in the last 2 decades among the Trump administration's pursuit of American energy dominance. Okay? Drill, baby, drill. It's critical. And when they were pushing the Green New Scam and it's all electric and let's buy lithium from the Chinese, okay, let's destroy America, that's what they did. Now Trump's reversing that. That sure as heck is really, really good news. More good news. Americans could see up to $2,000 tax refunds next year, says Treasury Secretary. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that working Americans are set to get very large refunds next year as tax cuts that were enabled in the Republican-backed One Big Beautiful Bill Act that's set to go in effect. I think we're going to see $100 to $150 billion of refunds, which could be between $100,000 and $200,000 per household, he told NBC News. American workers haven't yet adjusted their tax withholding, meaning that the refunds will be coming during the next tax year, he said. After the refunds, their withholding are likely to change so that less tax is taken from each paycheck going forward. So they're going to get more in a tax refund, working Americans, this coming February, March, April, right, tax season. They're going to get a bigger check than expected because they didn't adjust their withholding for the big, beautiful bill. Then their accountants they're going to say, hey, I don't want the government holding my money. I want more money now. Let's adjust our withholding, and you should do that on your paycheck, and you're going to get more in your paycheck. So it's going to be a double whammy. Here's a check that you didn't expect, and now here's more money every week in your paycheck. It's going to help set the economy going. It's huge, okay? And, by the way, in some Dem states, they're trying to stop the no tax on tips, right? Hey, why, but they're for the working man. They're for the little people. Yeah, don't believe anything they say. And then this was important because we know we have a problem with groceries and farming and stuff like that. Trump announces $12 billion in farm subsidies. President Trump, as Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins unveiled today, a $12 billion aid package targeting U.S. farmers who have struggled with low crop prices, rising costs, and trade tensions with nations like China. The aid is the administration's latest effort to defend Trump's economic stewardship and answer voter angst against rising costs. Even as the president has dismissed concerns about affordability as a Democratic hoax. It is. He's not just dismissing it. The reason things cost what they do are not because what Trump's done in the last 10 months. It's what Biden did in the last 4 years. You need to make that clear to people. It's just that simple. Say it just that way. The $11 billion will now focus on row crop farmers, e.g. those who grow corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, and rice, while the remaining $1 billion will focus on another crop like fruit and specialty crops and livestock farmers. So good news for the farmers, which means good news for you at the grocery store in the coming months and years. Okay? Good news. Good news. And I think this may have been the best news of the week, okay, because we all know we need this. Trump hit the road again. He went to Pennsylvania and did a Trump rally, and Susie Wise, what is she? She's the White House secretary, whatever the heck it is. She takes care of all Trump's, what Trump's doing. He went to Pennsylvania, and she says he's going to be doing this all year long. Trump touts creating nearly 60,000 jobs, $100 billion investments for Pennsylvania since his inauguration. I'm sure you enjoyed watching it. Many of us did. It's just great to see Trump in his element and get him the heck out of D.C. and Mar-a-Lago, where all the people who want something from him are surrounding him, and get back out there with the people and maybe pick up some things about what people want, right? President Donald Trump touted strong economic numbers for Pennsylvania in a kickoff his speech at Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania on Tuesday night. He stated his administration has created 60,000 jobs just for Pennsylvania alone since returning to office in January, and he highlighted the tens of thousands of Pennsylvanians who've been lifted off of food stamps. After just 10 months in office, I'm pleased to report that America is winning again. The important thing is that J.D. Vance is now going to do the same thing. Vance, who is set to appear in Allentown, Pennsylvania next Tuesday, has typically acknowledged voter struggles with the economy while talking about the economy, and he basically is saying, we're gonna turn this around. He's gonna tout everything that they're doing for affordability. So Schumer and those guys think, we have the issue that'll win the midterms. It's gonna be affordability. It's gonna be affordability. Well, they got the message, right? We talked about that. They got the message in Virginia and New Jersey and New York with Mandami, all right? They got the message with Miami, which was a weird thing. How can only 36,000 people turn out to vote for mayor of Miami? I think Miami has a population of over 1 million people. We got to cut this out, folks. If you don't participate in your own governance, the void will be filled by people who want to dominate you. Anyway, so Trump got the message. Now that's all they talk about. That's all they're doing. It's not all. What they're focused on is cutting prices for the average person, getting more money. And this is where the Treasury Secretary, Vance, is trying to make it clear. You can't, after the inflation from Biden, which was 9% at one point, the cost of goods are up like 21%. It's going to be really hard to lower those prices. So what you really have to do is increase income so you can afford those prices. That's the game. Now, yeah, he cut the price of eggs. He cut the cost of gasoline. There will be some lowering of food prices as fuel costs come down. But the bigger story is bigger income, and that's what they're working on. And so to have Vance and Trump out there talking this up and correcting the lamestream media and the Democrat lies, you're going to avoid, what I showed you in this cartoon at the very beginning, right? There's a Charlie Brown cartoon. We are all being manipulated on a scale of so incredibly large that it's difficult to fathom. Well, you watch this show so you can fathom that, okay? And I hope this first half helped you see where they're lying to you, what the truth is, what actions you need to take. You need to write to Trump at whitehouse.gov/contacts and say, this AI thing, you can't have federal control, and where are you protecting us? Where are you protecting our jobs from AI? Where are you not representing the tech bros, and instead you're representing the MAGA voters, your base, President Trump? You better change your focus on that, and then you got to get on Congress and say, we got to protect our children. You've got to have age verification at the App Store level so that this kid can't even download the TikTok app or the Facebook app or anything out. Go outside and play, kids. We'll all be a lot better off. Okay, we're going to take a break. I hope you enjoyed the first half of the podcast. You've been listening to the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll be back after these short messages.
When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button, and if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right? Right on the front page where the yellow button was. If you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share this whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others.
The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio, 44312. All right, and we're back for the second half of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the first half. Got some really good stories for you here coming up. I do want to say that we are on X at Tom Z WTPC, Tom Z WTPC. We're on Facebook. We're on MeWe. We're on Gab. We're on Getter. We're on Instagram. We've been thrown off of TikTok. I don't know what's going on with that. We're on YouTube, so you can find us, follow us, try to spread the word. Okay, try to spread the word. But and if you can donate, we would really appreciate it, because we got a real fight on our hands for next year, for 2026. Folks, this is it. I mean, this is the one we got to win. Now, there's a lot of you guys talking to me. A lot of people said, oh, even if we win in 2026, 2028 is going to be the real fight. No, it's not. They're politicians. They talk about politics, and politics swings and this and that. This isn't politics. This is war. This is war. You win wars and you lose wars. When you diminish your enemy's ability to fight to the point where they can't fight, you win the war. 2026 is when we end the Marxist, commie, socialist, Democrat traitors. That's when we end them. Their power will be gone. Our goal is not to keep the House and keep the Senate. Our goal is to destroy the communist left. I'm talking what the Tea Party did in 2010, when Barack Obama in 2008 was coronated because the Republicans put the jerk John McCain up and basically forfeited the thing, okay? In 2010, he's going to win the Senate. He had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and he was going to reign forever. Yeah, until the Tea Party came along and won 62 House seats. that they didn't think were coming and took back the House, the most since 1928, don't you know? Our goal is to go scorched earth on these people. Your goal is to go scorched earth. We want to win every seat. And I'm going to tell you the messaging. It's just real simple. Because here's the problem. The problem is us. The problem is we can't lose if we just turn out and vote. But we didn't in West Virginia. We didn't in Tennessee. I was screaming about you guys in the Tennessee 7th. What a pathetic showing that was. Okay? We got to turn out. Christians and Trump voters. If we turn out, we rule. Now, I think the message is real simple. Because the real challenge is, everyone's asked this question, how do you get Trump voters out when he's not on the ballot? And there's one answer to that question. We're going to do commercials. Your donation is going to help us produce commercials. We're going to run these commercials all over the country, all over social media. And the commercial is real simple. It's Hakeem Jeffries. It's Swalwell. It's Schumer. It's Maxine Waters. Whoever's just saying, when we win, we're going to impeach Trump. The first thing we're going to do is impeach Trump. We're going to go after and indict everyone in the Trump administration. We're going to go after individual ICE officers. We're going to run that commercial because that commercial will get people off their butts and get them out to vote. Because no American wants to go through what we went through from 2017 through 2024. No American wants to see that ever again. That's what you got to talk about. Nothing else. Not about policy. It's real simple. Why do you have to vote this year? Because if we don't destroy the left, they will destroy our country, and they will start by destroying Donald Trump. Simple enough? Okay. We'll be talking more about that, you can bet, going forward. All right, let's get on. We usually have international news at the start of the second half, so that's what we're going to do again, because there's stuff going on. It's like, what the heck is this, and what does it mean to our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity? Trump says U.S. has seized oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. So yes, we did. We literally captured a whole oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed that the Bureau, the Department of Homeland Security, and the FBI and other agencies were involved in the seizure of the oil tanker off of Venezuela on December 10th, stating that it was connected to terrorist organizations. So this is the thing you got to understand. They're saying Maduro's a drug guy and we're stopping drugs. We're blowing up these little speedboats. They're not that little. These speedboats because they're bringing fentanyl and stuff to the United States. But it's more than that. Today, the FBI and other partners executed a seizure warrant for a crude oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela used to transport sanctioned oil from Venezuela to Iran. You're not allowed to do that. The tanker has been used recent years in an explicit shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations. In response, the Venezuelan government issued a statement accusing the United States of blatant theft. You stole our oil tanker. All right? Iran's embassy in Caracas condemned the move as a grave violation of international law and norms. We condemn this action as contrary to all international principles and norms. You know, also is against all international principles and norms? Yeah, funding terrorist groups and using oil that you are sanctioned against getting to do that. And so Trump's totally within his rights to do this, and that's another way to hurt Maduro. But understand, Iran is directly involved. Venezuela is involved with Russia, China, and Iran. Who are they? They are our enemies. That's what we're doing in Venezuela. And we're going to crush them. Maduro's done, one way or the other. Literally done, or he's out of the country. But we can't allow this. And the Biden and Obama administrations let the Chinese and the Russians and Iranians move into South America, and Trump is saying, no more, no more. So then we've been talking about Trump's involvement with Mexico, and I showed you last week that story where 55 drug cartel people were taken out of Mexico and put in the U.S., and we're going after the narco-terrorists and all that. But this was even an interesting story. Trump threatens 5% tariff on Mexico over water treaty violations affecting Texas farmers. Do you see this? All that's going on, and you can barely keep up. This podcast last week was 2.5 hours just to give you the basic news, and there's all kinds of other stuff happening. And here's Trump, doing all this stuff, and he's worried about Texas farmers. President Trump warned Monday that Mexico's failure to deliver water owned under a decades-old treaty is harming Texas farmers and could trigger a new tariff if the country does not immediately release a critical share of its required supply. Mexico continues to violate our comprehensive water treaty, and this violation is seriously hurting our big, beautiful Texas crops and livestock, the president wrote. Mexico owes the U.S. over 800,000 acre-feet of water for failing to comply with our treaty over the past 5 years. The U.S. needs Mexico to release 200,000 acre-feet of water before December 31st, and the rest must come soon after, Trump continued. As of now, Mexico is not responding and is very unfair to our U.S. farmers who deserve much-needed water. That is why I have authorized documentation to impose a 5% tariff on Mexico if this water isn't released immediately. The key thing in that statement was they've been doing it for 5 years. Did Joe Biden give a damn about Texas farmers and livestock ranchers? This has been going on for 5 years, and Biden did nothing because they hate America. They want your food prices to go up. They don't want you to be able to eat. They want you to surrender to the commie Chinese. That's what they want. There's more evidence. I don't make false claims. We talk truth here. And if I don't say the truth, you hold me accountable. Info@wethepeopleconvention.org. Info@wethepeopleconvention.org. You tell me, hey, Tom, that wasn't true. If it wasn't true, I'll admit it, and I'll tell you the truth. We cannot lie ever to each other, to our spouses, to our children, to anyone. America has to be based on truth, not lies, and we're living in a damn sea of lies. This was good news because, the tariffs, it's creating inflation, it's not creating inflation, it's good, it's bad. This is one way it's good. China admits Trump tariffs severely damaged its economy. That was the goal. They're the biggest threat to us. They've been building a huge military with our money. And Trump finally said, now guess what? We're not stupid. We're not going to do that anymore. Let's see here. Chinese Premier Li Qiang criticized tariffs, including those imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump, claiming they have harmed the global economy, seen by many as an admission that Trump's tariff prices have had a significant impact on China specifically. Okay? Tariffs imposed on China by U.S. President Trump have resulted in significant supply chain disruptions, claimed the Chinese. Implicit in his remarks is the admission that the U.S. tariffs enacted by Trump have caused significant negative impact on China's export economy, which is highly reliant on selling goods to American consumers. Data released by Chinese customs officials show that exports to the United States year on year fell 28.7% in November. Notably, Chinese government data is often manipulated to present a more favorable picture than reality, suggesting that Trump's tariffs have likely had an even more profound impact. Okay? Over the last year, international finance experts have noted that the Chinese economy has experienced persistent deflation, well outside the parameters considered acceptable by the Communist Party. The deflationary cycle in China has seen a rapid collapse of consumer products prices driven by supply-side overcapacity, meaning the Chinese manufacturers are producing more goods than the country can export or consume internally. That was the goal. Starve them of capital so they couldn't continue to build the military and compete with us on AI. Western nations, and critically Europe, appear to be growing wary of Beijing's predatory trade practices. French President Macron floated the possibility of EU tariffs on Chinese goods during a recent visit to Beijing. Yeah, you think Europe you ought to do that? You think you ought to fight the Chinese instead of just go to bed with them and take their bribes like we did here in the U.S.? Yeah, so that's a good story that worked. This is a bad story because this is a threat, and I haven't given it enough time, and I'll try to do better. But I want to put it in context, okay? EU slaps Elon Musk's X with a $140 million fine over content rules. The EU should be supporting free speech, not attacking American companies over garbage, Vice President J.D. Vance said ahead of the decision. What is this about? The European Union and the EU and Britain want censorship. You've seen the stories in Ireland and Scotland and England where they're locking people up for 5 years because they put a post on X because they criticized the Islamists, the rape rings. It's insane. They're trying to use the power of their government to censor American tech companies. Musk has X, Meta with Facebook, all Instagram, even websites like Google. What they're trying to do is say, we're going to fine your tech companies out of existence if they don't censor Americans. And Trump has told them, go take a hike. But this is a real battle. And I'm telling you, Trump is going to end up raising tariffs, putting on sanctions, hurting the British and the European economy to defend your and my free speech rights. Because it's real simple. This is what this is about. This is not about Republicans and Democrats, right versus left. This is about totalitarian control of the state versus we the people. It's about individual liberty and freedom versus state control. We will take care of you, but you have to follow our rules, and that means you can't speak out against us. You can't own a gun. You can't have free speech. That's what they're going towards. That's what this is about. So put that on your radar. When you see these fights overseas, it's not just there. It's here. We are the defenders of free speech. And the left in our country wants this. That's what Biden was doing. And he was using companies, he was using people in Europe to help do it. Okay? So that's the fight. Understand. So speaking of the fight, what's good is they passed the National Defense, the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. So every 2 years or whatever, Congress has to pass the funding of the military. And of course, they did more than Trump asked them to do. Okay, about $50 billion more. It's like a $901 billion bill for our military. It's obscene, and much of it's wasted. But there's good things in here, so let me cover some of them. It codifies President Trump's effort to end left-wing ideology, wokeism, and DI in the military. I'll talk about that next. It fundamentally reforms the Department of War acquisition process, supporting President Trump's executive order about speeding up delivery and innovation of weapons. I'll talk about that next. Carries out Trump's efforts to improve the quality of life for our service members with a 3.8% pay raise. Okay, we like our soldiers. We want that. Provides $20 billion in savings, including from DOGE-initiated reforms assumed in President Trump's budget request. But, okay, they saved $20 billion, but then they spent it again. That's the problem. They keep spending it. And so, it's good they passed it. We need a strong military. We're in trouble, folks. We're in trouble. And so we need to fund the military. But, again, where's the cuts? Well, here's something that's pretty interesting that this congressman done. Congressman reveals secret weapon and defense bill. Bureaucracy bunker buster. Well, what's this about? This is pretty interesting. Representative Glenn Gotham says the National Defense Authorization Act passed Wednesday contains a little-noticed weapon to cut federal spending and bureaucracy. The Wisconsin Republican told Just the News the bill now headed to the Senate cuts up to 19% of civilian jobs inside the War Department, saving an estimated $30 billion. It appears as though the Department of Defense is going to step up and, like some of the other departments in the government, begin to lay off some employees who are really not necessary in today's highly technical world. Gotham said that the one thing Congress and the American people have learned in Trump's first year back in the Oval Office is how many Defense Department employees are civilians. The congressman said there were 760,000 civilian employees right now. I believe right now we've reduced that number by 18 or 19%. I was able to talk to some people in the Pentagon and get them on board with that. How about that? Yes. If we could cut 19% of all federal employees, you and I would be thrilled. That's what Trump promised. That's what Russ Vought promised. We ain't seen it yet. Good move by that guy. If you guys are in Wisconsin, tell Representative Rotham, good job. Write to him. You guys in Wisconsin, you're our representatives there. Say, hey, I heard about this on the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion podcast, and congratulations. Good job. We appreciate it. This tells you when I say we're in trouble, this is a definition of it. We need speed. Navy Secretary calls for wartime footing and weapons production as China looms. The Secretary of the Navy inaugurated a new naval office aimed at expediting the research, development, production, and deployment of new weapon systems and ships, declaring that we need speed and calling for a wartime footing as the challenges posed by China loom in the Pacific. Secretary of Navy John Phelan held an event on Tuesday announcing the formal opening of the new Rapid Capabilities Office, telling hundreds of defense industry officials gathered in the Navy Yard in the nation's capital that questions before us is whether we possess the institutional velocity to meet this moment, as he called for faster weapons production and quicker shipbuilding in the face of threats in the Indo-Pacific. I've been saying this about the trade schools. I've been saying this about our military production. I've talked to you guys about the Andrew plant in Ohio, which has to get up to speed quickly, because if we have a war, we're going to need the drones that they are going to manufacture there, okay? I don't understand why we are not acting more like we're in World War II. I just don't understand it. We are in serious trouble, kids. We can't make a damn boat, a warship in this country. How did that happen? I don't know, but President Trump's trying to fix it. We've talked about that. We need to get our people to understand it's not somebody else's job to save our country. It's your and my job, because it's our country. We got to get to work. Literally, physical labor work. And I saw Home Depot just gave $10 billion or something to help train people in the trades. Way to go, Home Depot. But you got to be talking about this incessantly. Because if we don't get to manufacturing really fast, and on our website, if you search on, the trades or something like that, skilled trades in our website, you'll see the stories where I said we need 10 million tradesmen, new tradesmen, by next summer. That's what we need. But that's not a huge number. That's like 3% of our workforce. We got 7% of our workforce sitting on their ass. The Navy Secretary's right. We need to do this. And then this was a good story because I mentioned, in that the NDA, helps us split D.C. Circuit Court sides with Pentagon on transgender military ban. I was very happy to see this. We got to cut this out. We need warriors, not men in dresses. Let's see. A D.C. Circuit panel on Tuesday froze a federal judge's order blocking President Donald Trump's effort to widely bar transgender people from serving in the military, finding the judge afforded insufficient deference to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's judgment. In a 2-1 decision led by 2 Trump appointees, the appeals panel stayed U.S. District Judge Ann Ray's preliminary injunction, which is based on her analysis that the policy wrongfully targets trans soldiers despite evidence that their service improves military readiness. There is zero evidence that anyone who's trans enhances military readiness. They are a problem. They are another burden for the real soldiers in the field, so they can't fight because they can't trust the mentally ill man who's wearing a dress and wants to be a soldier, okay? That's the reality. It's called gender dysphoria. It's not my opinion that he's mentally ill. It's a medical definition. If you say you're trans, there is no such thing as trans. You cannot change your gender. It's biological. It's in your DNA. And guess what? You're mentally ill by definition because you have a disease called gender dysphoria. So don't tell me I'm a bigot or I'm a whatever, transphobe, whatever. Shut up. You have a mental illness, and instead of helping you get healthy, we're cutting off body parts and making you more sick. Yeah. Hegseth's changing that. We're all for it. We're all for it. We're all for this, too. Education Department ends Biden's student loan bailouts. The Trump-McMahon Department of Education has moved to end the last of Biden administration's large-scale, illegal federal student loan bailout programs. It was nothing more than an illegal attempt. The Supreme Court ruled it was illegal to buy votes from young people who owed student debt. That's all it was. Totally illegal and criminal. But, who's going to pay? Who's going to be held accountable? Nobody, but at least we're stopping it. DOE announced its agreement with Missouri to end the Saving on a Valuable Education plan, which is set to cost taxpayers almost $350 billion in a decade's time. The December 6th press release celebrated the move as being not only a win for taxpayers, but necessary clarity for borrowers duped by the extravagant and unrealistic Democratic promises and the unrealistic promises by colleges and universities and their unbelievably corrupt charges for going to school. If we didn't take over student loans, if the federal government, the Democrats, they're so smart. The whole history, the communists, really. If you go back to Woodrow Wilson in 1930s, here's the story of America. The communists figured out how by becoming part of the government, they could steal our taxpayer dollars to fund their efforts to destroy America. That's the story of the last 125 years. And our job, we are fighting them, and they're using our money against. So we're fighting them with our money, and then we're paying them to fight us back. That's what we're trying to end. That's what this was. Oh, let's take over student loans. So what? Did colleges, we want to make college more affordable. Did colleges keep their prices the same? No, their prices went up 300% so they could hire more indoctrination trainers and destroy our children and teach them nothing and then weaponize them against America. Yeah, we paid for that. This ends that. Cut off the student loan, repayment forgiveness, but then cut off student loans completely. You want to go to college? Go borrow the money from a bank. I got news for you. They're not going to lend you money for a gender studies major. So good move, Linda McMahon. You're doing a great job at education. We're really proud of her. This is something that just, again, you're just like, man, the Trump team is just on it. And this guy who's running HUD, Turner, I'm just really impressed with Scott Turner. Look at that. Where did this come from? Trump admin probes Democrat-run cities' anti-white housing policies. Oh, really? The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has launched a civil rights investigation into Boston's housing policies, alleging they unlawfully favor blacks, Latino, and other ethnic minority residents. The context of race, fair housing is not about the absence of racial discrimination, but the presence of a deliberate system to achieve and sustain racial inequality. It's DEI. The Trump administration announced a major civil rights investigation in the city of Boston's housing policies, which allegedly favor blacks, Latinos, and other ethnic minority residents. Announced by the Department of Housing and Urban Development on Thursday, the investigation marks a significant federal investigation against local diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the Democrat-run city. HUD Secretary Turner described Boston's housing policies as a social engineering project driven by DEI ideology rather than legitimate housing needs. Turner vowed to bring the city into compliance with federal law, emphasizing this warped mentality will be fully exposed, and damn it, it needs to be ended. Again, they take our money to indoctrinate us into anti-whiteness. Anti-whiteness. Wow. Someone standing up for white people? Because guess what? Anti-whiteness is racism. Blatant racism. And so when people say you're a racist nation, we all think, wow, we must be racist against blacks. No, we're racist against whites. That's the truth of the last 30 years, and you need to stop it. Racism is wrong against anyone, and I talked to you last week about why do we even keep records of how many blacks and whites and Hispanics and Asians and stuff there are? Why? So we can discriminate. We're all Americans. The government should only count Americans. There should only be money for Americans, not white farmers or black fathers or this disadvantaged group. Shut up. Nobody's disadvantaged in the United States of America. Nobody. If you want to work hard, and it's proven every day, right? Well, the Somalians, they're really good at cheating and fraud, but look at the Nigerians. Go track Nigerians who come to America and see how much money they've made. They're rich because they work hard and they're smart and they love America. We got to keep changing, folks. We've got a lot of things to fix. Speaking of which, how did we get here? Oh, geez, I don't know. Just look at this sweetheart. Okay? Oklahoma. Sheila Dickerson, a BLM Oklahoma City leader, was just indicted for wire fraud and money laundering. BLM Oklahoma City reportedly raised more than $5.6 billion in bail funds to free George Floyd protesters. Okay, see her picture there? You guys got to see this huge black woman wearing a Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City t-shirt, and she's holding a 9mm pistol in her hand. Okay, so she raised $5.6 million for bail money. All right. And then when the bail funds were returned, because after you're let out, bail money is to keep you from fleeing, she got the money back. She pocketed personally $3.1 million in returned bail checks and put them in her personal checking account. She allegedly used the money to pay for luxury vacations, retail shopping, $50,000 in food, a new vehicle, and 6 retail properties in Oklahoma City that she made. You just can't make this stuff up. Oh, but Black Lives Matter cares about black lives, right? All their leaders have been indicted. It was another psyop, right? Remember the Charlie Brown cartoon at the beginning? Yeah, another psyop. She's been indicted, 32 counts. She's going to go to jail for a long, long time. I just regret the fact that now she stole all this money, and I hope we get that back and somehow it gets given back to the government or somebody. But the worst part is then we're going to have to pay our tax dollars to feed her for the rest of her damn life, when I'd rather just deport her too. Support Black Lives Matter. That's a new idea. How about that? Okay, this was not good news, but it's reality, and we have to accept that it's reality. All right, we're trying to redistrict to offset the already criminal redistricting that the Democrats have done forever. Right? We've talked about it. In New England, Trump got 40% of the vote. There are no Ohio House members in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, none of those, okay? So we're trying to adjust to that, and we've talked about this. You and I, patriots, don't like gerrymandering, don't like political redistricting, but it's a reality, and it's a tool in our war. Well, we lost a battle. We lost a battle this week in Indiana. Indiana Senate rejects Trump-backed redistricting bid, dealing blow to our 2026 outlook. Now, that's a little of exaggeration. We didn't lose anything. We just didn't gain, I think it's 1 seat we're trying to get. The Republican-led Indiana Senate voted against a proposal backed by President Trump to change the state's congressional map, which would have likely flipped 2 Democrat seats ahead of the 2026 midterms. The effort to pass the new map failed 19-31 despite Trump's public pressure on Indiana Republicans to follow in the steps of red states such as Texas, Missouri, and North Carolina and give the GOP a better advantage in next year's pivotal elections. Republican-favored proposal passed the Indiana House by a 57-41 vote, but then it failed in the Senate. On Wednesday, Trump warned that any Republican who voted against the redistricting proposal will be met with a MAGA primary, adding, if Republicans will not do what is necessary to save our country, they will eventually lose everything to the Democrats. He's not wrong about that. He's not wrong about that. I hope he backs up the threat. You guys in Indiana, if you can recruit some people to go after the senators who voted against it, hopefully Trump will help you. That's the way the game's got to be played. But that was a loss for us. There's no doubt about that. This is good news because we're fighting back. School board members sued New York AG James over letter on public transgender debate they find threatening. And this is just insidious. And again, this Letitia, man, is it Letitia? What's that? Yes. Letitia James, the New York AG is a criminal. She's not, she's literally a Marxist criminal. She went after Donald Trump on totally bogus criminal charges. She's fraudulently bought houses and lied on her loan documents. She declared a home, her primary residence, outside of New York, which is illegal by state law. But she's not going to stop until we put her away. And the lefty juries and basically in Virginia, where Washington D.C. is kept throwing out these charges against Comey and James, but we're still trying to get her. But this is what we're trying to stop. This is insidious. Okay, New York Attorney General Letitia James has run afoul of federal judges lately because of her, basically her legal activities. School board members and parents are now suing her and the New York Election Commissioner, Betty Rosa, for allegedly threatening to remove the former from office for publicly supporting sex-separated interscholastic sports and school facilities or pronouns that correspond biological sex at board meetings, or even for letting the latter say the same things. Filed in the Southeast Legal Foundation, the First Amendment lawsuit takes aim at guidance letters, a tool frequently used by attorney generals and regulators to share their interpretation of law without bringing formal enforcement action that could trigger litigation, a sword of Damocles hanging over the potential target's head. Here's what she did. She copied Obama. She sent a letter to all the school boards in New York State saying, if you allow these parents to come to your school board meetings and question transgender students being in athletics or being in locker rooms, if you, the school board, even allow them to say those words, you could be in violation of New York State law and we'll come after you. How's that? Okay? How's that? And the school boards are suing, saying, F you. No, we're not going to do that. Such letters were widely used in the Obama administration to threaten federal funding for colleges that resisted its interpretation of Title IX as restricting due process rights in students accused of sexual misconduct. Courts repeatedly blocked the Biden administration's similar Title IX regulations all the way up to its final 2 weeks in power. So what happened, again, the Democrats hate America. They are communists. They work for the communist Chinese. And so what did the Obama administration do? They didn't change Title IX. They just sent a letter to colleges to say, yeah, if a woman accuses a white boy of rape, then you can throw them out of school without any due process. They can't even meet their accuser. Okay? This happened all throughout the Obama years. It was a way to destroy white America. And they did it because the lefties loved it. I want to do that. I hate white men. So I'm going to use this cover to set up this kangaroo court system. And a very good friend of ours, her son's life was nearly destroyed by this. It's a tactic, but now we're fighting it. And that's the difference. Because for the last 25 years of your and my life, we let this shit happen. It was horrible. And not you and I, for the most part, we fought it tooth and nail. But as a society, we let it happen. We paid a hell of a price. Now that's got to end. Now we've got to stop all this stuff and keep it going in the right direction. So I posted this video on our website, and I was kind of second guessing. I've had it for weeks. I didn't post it until this week. Overcoming the Feminization of Culture by Helen Andrews. It's only a 17-minute video, but there's also the text of an article she wrote that got a whole lot of coverage, okay? The premise of this article is that feminization has destroyed the West and America. Her position is, and she provides all kinds of facts, and I think you and I agree that men and women are biologically different. And the whole focus of feminism was, no, we're not. A woman can do any job a man can do. And while on the fringes, 99% of men can win in weightlifting and maybe 1% of women can compete with them, but 99% of women can't. We're different. That's not prejudice. It's biological fact. Her premise in this video is you can't have women judges. And you're seeing this. Why are mostly women judges letting criminals out? You're seeing it every day. Oh, because of their emotions, because of feelings. Law isn't about emotion. Law is about fact. This is what the law says. Women are destroying our judicial system. She goes and talks about the military. She talks about, just in business. And that all these quotas, we have to have an equal number of women. No, we need to have merit. We need the best person. And we need to stop lying. Feminism was a psyop to do what? Destroy the family. Destroy the family. Oh, you're just a slave to your husband if you stay home and raise the kid. You're being denied your ability to self-actualize and stuff. All lie. It's a lie. Being a mom's the greatest thing you could ever do. Men should wish they could be moms. Okay? It was all intended to destroy the West, and it has. And now we're fighting back. Now we're trying to reassert it. So you may be offended by this, or you may not. You may agree with her, or you may not. But it needs to be up for discussion because we got to stop putting people in positions they're not the best qualified to do. It's that simple. Write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and let me know how you think about watching that video and that story. I'll be very interested in your responses. A couple more stories and we'll wrap up the podcast here. Colorado schools win major battle and fight to protect girls' sports. And again, why do they have to fight to protect girls' sports? Why do the school boards in New York have to fight their attorney general to protect girls' sports? Why isn't the attorney general protecting women? Right? That's the question. Because the left, the Marxist left, infiltrated our institutions to destroy us. And until you throw them out, until we put them in prison and get rid of them, we're going to suffer from this idiocy. So in Colorado, for some sports, getting men out of women's sports has more hurdles than clear than a track meet. That's a good line. More hurdles than clear in a track meet. Take Colorado, which allows transgender identifying boys to compete in girls' sports in the name of protecting people's sexual identity, which is a made-up word. There is no such thing as sexual identity. That's a made-up word. But that could soon change. Colorado School District number 49, located just out of Colorado Springs, is leading a coalition of 7 other districts that are challenging the law. The district filed suits in May against the Colorado Civil Rights Division, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, the Colorado Attorney General, and the Colorado High School Activities Association. Last week, the Colorado High School Activities Association settled with the plaintiffs, a major victory for girls' sports. District 49 felt a lawsuit was necessary after it adopted rules last year requiring all school sports teams to be divided by biological sex. District 49 Superintendent Peter Hiltz said he made clear rules on biology for his school district after he noticed more incidents of men trying to compete as women around the country. District 49 filed their lawsuit in May to protect the district from any penalties brought by Colorado's sports governing body. I would never want my daughters to compete against a boy. That would be unfair, Hiltz told the Daily Wire. Hear, hear. Way to go, Colorado. You guys in Colorado Springs, right? Go and tell those guys. Call him up. Call this guy up and say thank you for fighting District 49, right? What's his name? Peter Hiltz, the superintendent at District 49. And the other 7 schools. Support the people who are fighting for us. Don't just hear it on this podcast and then blow it off. They need to hear from you. He took risk to stand up. Support him. We support the people who fight for America. This is a really good news story. I just saw it right before the podcast and said, we got to put this baby in here. Buried treasure. Miners discover massive supply of rare earth minerals in Utah. Now, you guys know we've been talking about President Trump. The federal government invested in a mining company in Nevada because we need these rare earths that we used to lead in, and then we abandoned and gave to China. And now they use them against us because we can't build batteries, motors, fighter jets, cars without these minerals. And so Trump is trying to move forward as fast as possible. This was a great break. A Utah-based mineral production company has stumbled upon, I don't know if they stumbled, a potentially game-changing discovery of 16 different types of rare earth elements and critical minerals in the state's Silicon Ridge area. The discovery could potentially help America lower its reliance on China for metals vital to high-tech manufacturing. The Wall Street Journal reports that Ionic, IONIC, Minerals Technologies, a company focused on producing nanosilicon for lithium-ion batteries, has uncovered what could be the most significant critical minerals reserve ever discovered in the United States. Whoa! The discovery made while mining clay in Utah's Silicon Ridge includes high grades of 16 different rare earth minerals ranging from lithium and alumina to germanium, rubidium, cesium, vanadium, and niobium, N-I-O-B-I-U-M. I did pretty good with that list. The importance of this find cannot be overstated, as it has the potential to significantly reduce the United States' resilience on other countries, particularly China, who provides these critical minerals. The company has already drilled an area spanning more than 600 acres to a depth of 100 feet, but their CEO, Andre Zaiton, believes that it is just the beginning. We now have a sizable deposit, and we know that's just scratching the surface, and said, referring to the site as a district rather than a single mine, giving it vast scale. One of the key advantages of the Utah site is that it's already permitted. It's already permitted for mining, which will expedite the production process. Additionally, the area benefits from having a fully established infrastructure across its 8,000 acres, including access to roads and water needed for mining. Iconic MT plans to process the minerals at its nearby facility in Provo, Utah. Yes! Yay! Way to go, Utah! They're going to help save America. They're fighting for us. Great news. Great news. All right. So we're going to wrap up the show, and we usually refer to Charlie Kirk at the end of the show. And, you know, there's been a lot of insanity, I have to say insanity, about the murder of Charlie Kirk. And it's been disgusting. And Candace Owens, I'm sorry. I have no respect for her whatsoever. And again, I understand on our side, we have to look at everything and we got to question the government. But this is just wrong. And Erica Kirk was all over Fox this week because they just published Charlie Kirk's last book. And she took on the people on our side in the conservative movement who are making millions of dollars pushing lies about Charlie Kirk, pushing lies. And so the trial of Charlie Kirk's murder started this week. And I'm going to play this video for you. It's real short. And it's from a post that Byron York made on X saying, "Good to remember in light of all the crazy conspiracy talk." Jonathan Turley says, "Evidence against Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin is the strongest I've ever seen in any case." Listen to what Turley has to say.
Okay, here with us is Jonathan Turley, Fox News contributor, George Washington University law professor. Now, Jonathan, the judge allowed the cameras in the court just for today, for this preliminary conversation, deliberation on this, move the public out as they were talking about the concerns of both parties. But I have a question. Given the fact that this is fairly well-established judicial, discretion and standards of discretion, why on earth is this taking until February to decide this one issue?
Well, this is a very deliberative judge, and I've been impressed with him overall. He's I think, handling the case well. It is not moving at a clip that one would hope for. It's definitely going a bit slower. But I think that reflects the fact that this judge wants to be very cautious. The fact is, this is a case with overwhelming evidence. I mean, the prosecutors could probably lose 90% of this evidence in a suppression hearing and still secure an easy conviction. He has a presumption of innocence, but the evidence here you can't ignore is just the strongest I've ever seen in a case. So the real concern for the court is not just he has to protect the rights of the defendant, which is the primary concern on these questions, but also he doesn't want to commit reversible error because that tends to victimize the family again because they have to go through this again.
So there you have it. The guy that killed Charlie Kirk is the guy who killed Charlie Kirk. Charlie's saying he's never seen stronger evidence. Now, whether that guy was working with somebody else, okay, I'm open to talk about that. But stop talking about people at Turning Point killed Charlie Kirk or Israel killed Charlie Kirk or whatever other nonsense you're talking about. Stop it. Anybody who tries to talk about that, just say, Don't talk to me about that. I don't have time. We're trying to save our country. We're trying to get people out to vote in 2026. Okay? And so I want to show this meme because I think this is what you have to remember about Charlie Kirk. Charlie wasn't killed because he spoke. He was killed because our children were listening when he spoke. That's why they killed Charlie Kirk. Okay? And I said, we're at war, and you have to win the war. Wars are won and lost, and you have to inflict damage. That was a huge attack, a huge loss by us on our side. We've got to inflict significant damage to them. We have to arrest and lock up the criminals on the left. We have to defund them. We have to deport the illegals and their gang, their army. All right? We're doing those things. We're at war. This is serious stuff. And so that's what we want. We want to fight. And Turning Point is going to play a huge role next year. And you better support them. I had someone actually who's a donor who said, at the end of the year, I'm giving checks. And, geez, I wasn't sure I was going to send a check to Turning Point. I said, what are you talking about? You're not going to send a check to Turning Point? Who the hell are you going to send it to? Nobody's going to do more with your check than Turning Point. I also encourage them to give the True the Vote. I was on a conference call with Catherine Engelbrecht at True the Vote. Wow, am I excited about what they've got put together for 2026. After all these years of her being persecuted and prosecuted, put in jail by the Biden or the Obama people and for just nonsense, everything they've done to her, she is loaded for bear this year. You should give the True the Vote. You should get involved. Go to True the Vote's website. There's other groups that are fighting. But you're not going to give the Turning Point? Wow. Listen, we will fulfill his mission by completing America's spiritual revival. That is what it's all about. This is a fight between good and evil. It just is. It's not political. It's spiritual. It's real. And if you don't get that, you're never going to win. You got to know your enemy. So we know the enemy. I've shown you the enemy here in this podcast. I've shown you how to fight it. And we will put on our podcast website a list of your action items for this week. And I need you to do those. The other thing you need to do is tell people about this podcast. Share it. The more people who hear this, the more people who know what's going on, the more people who act on what we need them to act on. And write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. And say, here's a story you didn't cover that needs to be covered. It's important. Here's something you didn't, you misstated. Or maybe you can expand upon this because I didn't understand that. It's your podcast. I just deliver it. Okay? This is for you. Stories in this podcast came from you guys. And so participate in your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. It's not passive. It's a participatory sport. That's what we do here. So we're going to wrap up the podcast, for this week. I hope you're getting really fired up for Christmas. I hope you're seeing family. You're making plans for that. I know it's cold. Winter came early. I did finally get outside, and we had yesterday. It was like 34 degrees, but the sun was out, so it felt warmer. So I got the ladder out, and I got some wreaths up on the house that needed to be up. So hope you're getting that done too. Enjoy the Christmas season. Remember the reason for the season. The reason for the season is the birth of Jesus Christ, right? Celebrate that. That's a big deal. But regardless, celebrate with your fellow Americans, celebrate the greatness of this nation, and then do something to protect it and defend it. Okay? All right. God willing, we'll both be back next week. Okay? I hope that you have a good week. I hope that you're healthy, or if you're not healthy, that you get better. All right? And just keep fighting. We're going to win. I promise you. We're going to win as long as we fight. As long as we show up. We can't lose. I promise you that. All right. Going to wrap up the podcast. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. May God bless you and yours, and may God continue to bless our great nation. Have a great week. See you next Saturday.
so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets trembling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, traitors that star-spangled banner, yeah, wave for the land under the free, and the home of the brave. Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight to rename the name of the brave. We are the US of A. For those unaware, that flag is still there. It's our future to save this land of the brave, the US of A. Oh, traitors that star-spangled banner, yeah, wave for the land under the free, in the home of the
For you guys who are listening to the podcast, at the end of the podcast, I always put up a graphic, and I don't always read it, but it's an important message. And I look at this literally every day because it helps remind me of the fight we're in. This is a quote from Winston Churchill. He said, "If you will not fight for right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory is sure and not too costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival." That was last year. That's where we were last year. There may even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory because it is better to perish than to live as a slave. That's what we're fighting. We don't want to be slaves to the communist Chinese. If they win the AI fight, if they outproduce our military, they will enslave you and your children for centuries. That's what we're fighting against. You can never forget that. And then Churchill has another quote that I put on our emails that says this: "It is not a choice to fight evil. You must fight evil because it will either kill you now or it will kill you later, but it will surely kill you." That's why you can't hesitate. That's why when you see evil, you've got to take it on right now. God bless you guys. Have a happy holiday season. We'll see you next week.